So I'm pleased to be on stage today with Jenny. So Jenny, you're the co-founder of ReInc, a company you funded with 4 of the US female soccer players. It's a pretty amazing story. And first of all, I'd like to ask you a question. How did you become involved in such a story?
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing serendipitous story. So I'll give you a bit more of my background. So right now I'm a co-founder / founding advisor of ReInc with 4 US women's soccer players and also World Cup winners. Megan Rapinoe, Kristen Press, Tobin Heath, and Megan Klingenberg. And before that, I had worked on various engineering teams at Zoom, Google, and DoorDash. And before that, I studied CS and math at Harvard. So I got involved with them. Very special story. They were basically in Silicon Valley, just randomly, just visiting. And one of our mutual friends, who was an angel investor, threw a dinner for them at like this Mexican restaurant, invited me, really hit it off with the players, and they were telling me, like, we are interested in starting a company. And I was like, cool, like, what type of company? And they're like, we don't know yet. And so I started talking about different models of direct-to-consumer success, whether that was the Glossiers or the Rothy's or the Aways of the world, like why they were successful, what was unique about those companies. And we also hit it off in terms of having a lot of the same beliefs. So we all believed very strongly in empowering underfunded or underappreciated women. Like I personally had been working on running this Women in Tech conference, one of the largest in the US, called Women Engineers Code in Boston, and had also been volunteering, teaching CS to middle school girls, inner city girls in the city, etc. So we had a lot of the same shared values. They recruited me to be a co-founder. This is like in November, and so we've been working hard ever since. And something that's really funny that I always get asked is, are you a soccer player? Like, do you play soccer? And the answer is no. I'm like a mathlete, like not an athlete. I cannot kick a ball to save my life, but I love watching.
So you've done so many things. And so what decided you and them to create the company now? Because it was like a particular time.
Yeah, exactly. So this company was really born out of the equal pay movement, as many of you probably read about the groundbreaking lawsuit for equal pay that they filed earlier this year. And they were basically just very tired of fighting for a greater slice of the pie. And they were like, why not just create our own pie? And
it was just before the World Cup.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. And like, the best way to create your own pie is by launching your own business. Like, you call the shots, you own 100% of the revenue and profits that are coming your way. Like, you get to set an example for so many other young women out there. And so that's why we started the company. And then I think when you start a company, the #1 question you should always ask is why now? And so the why now for this company was, in 2019, things are very different from when they were in 2015 when they last won the World Cup. We have, the Me Too movement. We've had Lean In. All of the times of actresses want to help and get involved. It's just the entire ecosystem is very different, and it makes me feel very optimistic that like all of these forces can come together and really start this movement.
And you said no one has an idea of what to do with this company. Who finds the idea?
The company is called ReInc because it's all about resisting the status quo, reinventing products, redefining what the future could look like. And so it's a direct-to-consumer, purposeful lifestyle brand. We're starting out in streetwear because that's really what the women love to wear off the field. And we've already dropped 1 product. Earlier this year, around the time of the World Cup, it was a statement designer t-shirt. And then we're going to be dropping more products later this fall, probably around 8, including like a sweatshirt and sweatpants and biker shorts and socks. The quality of the streetwear is very much designer. Think Balenciaga or Alexander Wang. And our go-to-market strategy is supreme type drops. So we make a limited quantity of each, and then we drop it. And that's how we keep the ball rolling. And we wanted to do streetwear because it's traditionally been a very male-dominated space, even though there's been a lot of appetite for both female consumers and for female design products. So all of the pieces are designed by the players themselves, which is like they're super involved, and it's what they are going to wear / would have worn if they had the option. But we're also moving to other verticals like wearable tech and wearable tech and wellness, which we've been experimenting prototypes in, as well as content. So we're thinking of filming like a Free Solo-esque docuseries, probably done by like a Hulu or Sony, which is all about what it takes to be the best soccer players in the world, but also be fighting for equal pay, but also be starting this company, like a female-founded, female-run, female-owned company. And so a lot of our meetings are done on Zoom. And so what I actually do is I record the meetings on Zoom, I save them to the cloud, and all of this will become behind-the-scenes footage for the docuseries. So that's really exciting.
And so you're making unisex clothes, but we can say this is a kind of usual pitch. What's the main difference with ReInc? If you have to highlight one difference, it will be?
Yeah, so I think it's not just unisex and gender fluid, but it's also inclusive in so many other ways. It goes all the way from extra, extra small to extra, extra large, and it's also very high quality, made from scratch pieces that the players design themselves. All the materials sourced ethically, we use ethical factories, etc.
So you said you're female-funded companies, you also have female investors, and this is also true when it's come to the factory, right?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, we stand by our ethos in everything we do. So our team is 80% women. The last 4 people I hired were all women. We're thinking of expanding the team, and when we do, we want the application process to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. But also, it was really important from day one that as much of our cap table be women as possible. And so earlier this summer, we raised a small seed round from Kleiner Perkins, as well as a bunch of women from Kleiner Perkins, as well as a bunch of other female angel investors. And I think the reason why I really wanted to do that was I read this really amazing Medium article, I think it was earlier this year, by #Angels in Carta, and it was all about the gap on the cap table. So it's like not just how much funding is being given to women founders versus male founders, or the number of female VCs versus the number of male VCs, but there's like a huge difference in the amount of startup equity that's actually owned by females versus males. And so I got to thinking, and I was wondering, like maybe one way that you could shift the needle even a little bit is for more young women to be angel investing in companies. And so I recently started angel investing, and at first I was like really concerned. I was like, I'd always thought if you were to be an angel investor, you have to have like made it as a founder. Like you have to have taken your company public or like had a very successful exit. And then I started realizing that a lot of my male peers and friends who are in a similar stage as I am, similar age range, they were all investing whenever they had the opportunity, and they weren't like stressed out about like, am I legit enough to be an angel investor? And so since then, I've invested in 2 companies. There's an enterprise localization API company that was actually in YC this summer. We just closed around last week with a whole bunch of amazing investors like Index and Haystack, et cetera, and as well as a solo female founder in New York who's starting this online healthy snack marketplace. So that's been super cool, and I really hope that in the future, if more young women can be both starting companies but also investing in companies, that will compound, and then women ownership in startup equity will grow over time.
Definitely. And how many people are you in the team now?
Yeah, so we are 10 people.
10 people, and is it like you have 5 founders? Is it then marketing? Is it like creating the clothes? It's what type of background?
So we have a marketing team, the 4 founders. I'm one of the co-founders. We also actually have 3 other co-founders, so it's super fun. But the team is actually all distributed, so we're all in different locations, which makes it both challenging and exciting.
And now I'm pretty sure everyone here has the same question: what it looks like to work with soccer players, some worldwide known soccer player. Are they really involved in the business day to day?
Yeah, I mean, the players themselves are amazing. Like, they're so smart, they're so hardworking, and I think working with them, I really saw like the discipline it takes to be an Olympian. Like they're so disciplined, and even though they've never worked in a company before, let alone a startup, like they've been professional soccer players their entire life, they are always super excited and interested in learning new things as the company evolves. I mean, we've learned so much together, and they're really like the creative vision behind the company. Like they're so detail oriented. Like they will like agonize over like what a toggle looks like on the cuff of a sweatpant, or like what the stitching looks like, making sure that the cloth is as high quality as possible and the thread and the color is exactly perfect. And so they're super detail oriented, and they care so much, and all of the products we make are really like a labor of love. And I would say that the most difficult thing about working with players is that they're never in the same place. Like two of them play for Portland, one of them plays for Seattle, one of them plays for Utah, but then they all like live in different areas. Like one of them lives in LA and one of them lives in Connecticut, and they're always traveling for games because in the US, the National League is actually still going on, so they have games through the end of October, and then they go into training camp for the Olympics next year, so it's kind of crazy. And so we do have to rely a lot on different tools. And I always like to joke that like the hot topic in Silicon Valley right now is the future of work being like a distributed workforce. Like everyone's like, ooh, like Zoom and Slack and Front and Tandem and all these companies. And Stripe is launching remote engineering hubs in Singapore and Mexico City, and having so many remote engineers. And I always like to joke that we were actually ahead of the trend because the players were never in the same place to begin with. And so we do rely a lot on like Slack and Zoom, and we also recently started using like Notion and Trello. Okay. So we have a very modern startup stack.
Okay, and I think the first T-shirt you released this summer was linked to France, right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we dropped our first product this summer. It was a statement T-shirt. It said, and sorry if my French is not very good. it's a liberté, égalité, défendez, liberty, equality, defending, which is a play on the French model. So we took out the word fraternité, which is not as inclusive as we wanted it to be, and we swapped it with the word for defending because they were defending their 2015 title. And so that was super fun, and also an ode to France.
Cool. And so what's next now for the company and for you?
Yeah.
What's your plan for the future?
Yeah, so I think in the future, we are thinking of raising a Series A probably in Q1 or Q2 of next year, but my personal philosophy is to really just raise as little as possible, because
why?
So I'm hoping, I think we're projected to be profitable by the end of this year, and so I'm like super thrifty. I'm always like, I want to spend the least amount of money possible to achieve the greatest amount of growth, because I think overspending on CAC is the worst thing you can do. So that's like my goal and my vision, but I think if you think longer term, the next World Cup is in 2023, and the players are all in their mid-30s, and so they may or may not be playing again at that time. Like next year, the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, it might be their last time on the international stage. And so I think what matters most to them and to the company is really like what type of legacy do you want to leave behind? Is it like the number of goals you scored, or is it also the impact you have? And I think for them, they really want to make an impact where they're able to bring together like a really loving community of both tastemakers and change makers who believe in the same values that they do, kickstart the conversation, like combine all these forces of equality and women's rights and empowerment and pay equity, and drive that conversation forward. And I think that in the future, a big part of what the next chapter for them is this company.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.